Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode, are we 24th?
We
24th,
are
yeah.
24. Yeah.
Episode 24th of Creative Collaborations Conversations with Veronica and Jillian. And as always, I'm Veronica, and I have here Jillian with me. Hey, Jillian.
Hello. Hi there. How's everybody doing? How are you?
So today we are,
So yeah, we're gonna jump into events today, right? Talking about events,
yeah.
some things from previous year and then just event planning and looking at this calendar year as well. And a few other bits. But before we jump into that, we always do our check-in and whatnot. So I'm curious, what's on your mind? What's going on? It's still
Oh,
cold out. It's still winter, and it's still January. So what's on your mind on this fine day?
so it should be work and new project starting. But honestly, like I shared with you before, it's salsa dancing. And
Salsa dancing. Yeah.
and bachata dancing. So I did discover salsa and bachata last year, and I actually fell in love with it. It's
Mm,
so much fun.
mm.
So what I'm doing now, I'm just looking for events. While looking for events for our
Yeah.
podcast that we want to
Yeah.
share, I came
Yeah.
across the different salsa events and met with a friend yesterday. That actually he's the friend that took me to my first. He's a Colombian. Took
Mm,
me to my first salsa party, I think you call it, and he
hmm.
taught me how to dance, and I had so much fun. So we do plan to have a big party. A lot of people, like, I just, the moment I start sharing, hey, who wants to join me for salsa? I
Hmm.
realized I have so many people around me that love it and they want to join. Or even if they don't know it, I'm a beginner. I'm just barely learning the steps now. But
Yeah,
everyone is so enthusiastic about it because it's just fun music and having fun and being with friends. Like, and then I
it
found out that
is.
you and your wife are just profi. Like,
Yes.
you're
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I mean, it's perfect. It makes perfect sense to go from, oh, it's really cold, to like, let's turn up the heat and talk about salsa. Like that's a great place to go.
isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it sure is. It's funny. So yeah, salsa is a big part of I would say my daily life because yeah, I don't know. My wife would say, well, she's Latina. Of course, salsa is a big part of our life, our daily life. But it, just, as far as my an abbreviated version of my salsa story, it can be summed up with this fabulous scene in the movie Along Came Polly. So I don't know if you saw that or
I
anybody
did not.
listening is saw Along Came Polly. It's like fantastic with Jennifer Aniston and Ben Stiller. And yeah, and
Mm.
he shows up, they're like trying to date, and he shows up to a salsa club where she's dancing with her best friend who happens to be a gay male. And like, Ben Stiller's character sees her and is like, oh God, and it's like just how that's exactly what happened to me. And the first time I went out with my wife's friend in her community in this Sudamericana, like kind of nightclub dance event in Los Angeles years ago with all of her friends. They were like excellent salsa dancers, and then there was me not blending in. So I seem to have lost you, but there you are. She's back.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Life is happening.
Yeah.
And delivery man came, so I'm sorry for
uh,
the viewers. And
that's what
I,
happens.
w- I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
I was hoping I can listen. I am listening to your
Yeah.
story. I can
I was
just
like,
press a
oh, this
button.
story is no good. Stop, no, no.
I
But
do
yeah, so
apologize.
this
Real life
it's
here.
okay. Yeah, yeah, it happens. No,
And I
so
do
I
have a dog that
started.
will react to the postman.
Oh, you start to hear, yeah, the barking. Yeah, so I got my first salsa lesson, and then so the joke is in telling her, asking her if she's up for teaching some other folks. She said to make sure that you expect for her to kind of hold you by the back of your pants, because that's how she taught me. So we would be, practicing, and she would be holding the back of my pants, which was really kind of funny and a little bit surprising and a little bit like feeling like I'm a child. But doing that helped quite a bit. And so that's the secret to salsa dancing, is have somebody that can teach you, um, or maybe come salsa dancing with us in a few weeks. So anyhow, so that is my salsa dancing story. So we're going to be, yeah, we're going in a few weeks. And then, anyway, so let's shift gears and then jump into this topic at hand, events. I think
I love the
with a,
story. And
yeah,
actually, I'm looking forward to meeting your wife and being
yeah,
guided into the
yeah,
right steps. And guess
she's
what?
great.
I managed to record this and actually get my packages from the postman. I feel
Oh,
very accomplished
look at
today.
that. Talk about what's it called?
Real life
What's it called? Oh,
multitasking.
we're multitasking. I'm like, what's that word? Yeah, there we go.
So thank you for whoever invented the AirPods.
Yeah, AirPods, sure.
And
Yeah, so I think with events, I think it can be, there's so many different ways we can approach it. So what
so
I
there are fun
thought
events like
is,
what we discussed, and definitely people need those in their lives. And then you have the
yeah,
business events.
yes, for sure. So the way I'm thinking about it, I'm just going to lay it out and then we can just chat about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I kind of approach this and the way I was thinking about it is first is looking at, um, perhaps as a starting point, as always, data. It's shocking, I know. But I first would look at, okay, so what was
For
my
the ones
event
that
calendar?
don't listen to us
Yeah, I
regularly,
know. This is me always.
there's Jillian.
Yeah, so what events did I, what events were on my calendar last year? What events did I attend? So kind of an inventory of that. So I can talk through that. And then what conferences or events are on my calendar for this year or on my radar at least. So there's one. Second would be sources. So how do you find out about events? The third is how do you approach deciding or prioritizing events? And then the fourth is also not surprising, is kind of at least how I do and recommend like the mindset and process and just tips about how to maximize event attendance or registration, I'll say for now. So I've got some pieces there. So those are the four kind of buckets, I'll say, that I think of, or at least I thought of in preparation for this chat about events.
So how about you lead this conversation and I'm just jumping into and adding because as always,
Okay. All
what else
right.
can I add to this? Is the perfect plan.
All right, perfect. So I'll just chat and yeah, you jump in. And actually you have some cameos in my calendar, I suppose.
I do
So
have some. I do
yes,
have
yes.
some, and I do have
Yeah.
some events. So I do like the structure, and why I said I'm gonna let you lead and just add to them because I have a feeling probably half of the events that I will attend that I have, and you are attend actually more than half are the same. So
Hmm. Hmm.
let's see, and then probably we're gonna have a
Maybe.
couple of them that are slightly different because of
Hmm.
course you're focusing quite a lot on the big corp. So I'm expecting to see some events around that. I do work quite a lot to startup bootcamp, so some events from there. But what we did last year, actually, I did invite you to those events, and you invite me to the other one, so we end up being at the same events, and that makes our life easier because um, one piece of advice that I will always give, especially if you are an introverted or you're not very comfortable when you go to events, is just go with someone, especially someone that knows or has a network or is a connector because then it's easier to make the most out of it, to meet
Hmm.
people, to get
Mm-hmm.
introduced to some people just need a wing person to say
Mm-hmm.
it like that, not to feel alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So when I look at my calendar from last year, I have 9 events on my calendar. I may have missed a couple, but I think there were 9 events. And this is actual events that I attended. Because when
Mm.
you talk about events and conferences, it can then lead to what, online events, sure, but then if you just do an individual webinar with somebody, is that an event or not? So
That's a
that's
good,
like, I feel
yeah.
like,
How do we
yeah,
define events?
yeah, so I feel like we could even do follow up and talking about online events
Yeah.
specifically. But so in any case, so for me, there were 9 events, I believe, that I attended last year. So I looked
Just
at
to
each
clarify,
one.
physical
Yes,
events, like in real life events,
yes,
we are
in
talking.
person.
Yes.
Yes, yep,
Yeah.
yep, 9 that I attended. Um, So when I looked at them, I looked at a few things. Number one, um, how did I find out about it? What was the cost? And then afterwards, how did I rank all 9 of them? Like which one was my favorite or which was the best one all the way through? So I did that. So I have my kind of ranking to help me just see. And as it turns out, so some of them were free events, some of them I paid quite a bit of money to attend. As it turns out, just a kind of ancillary data point that for some people may not be useful, but to me, I love these things. It turns out that you know how they say free has no value?
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, that can be true. And for me, it turns out that the most, like my favorite, the most beneficial event I went to is the one that I did pay the most to attend. So I don't know if that's
Mm.
just an outlier or what have you, but that's that. So
Which one
anyhow,
was
so
that
I
one
looked at those.
actually?
The Social Enterprise World Forum.
Mm.
Yeah.
I do remember that had quite a high entry cost.
Yeah, I really it was worth it and then some. Anyway, so I really enjoyed that event. Um, anyway, so I looked at those. So straight away, it helps me to then look forward to 2024 to see of those, you know, the top 4 or 5 events from this year, or maybe all of them. Would I like to do them again this year if they happen? Because sometimes there's just individual standalone events, but so I that does help me to guide which events I prioritize for this year. So that's just a kind of a starting point. So yeah, so events on my calendar for this year. So I actually think I'm I guess wondering what overlap. So you seem to think we're going to have a strong overlap, but I'm wondering. I mean, I'm kind of on the bleeding edge of some things and very I'm looking at like policy stuff, EU policy. There's an event in Belgium actually coming up in Brussels, Better Business for a Better Tomorrow. It's happening in February.
I
So
love
that's
the sound of
more
that.
so yeah, so
I
I'm
do
like
want to diversify what I'm doing as
yeah,
well because you know that that saying is the definition of insanity is to keep on doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different
sure,
results. And for me,
sure.
last year was the transition year, so a lot of things changed in my personal life and also a little bit professionally. And I didn't attend so many events. I did towards the end of the year, but not the first 3 quarters, or at least not the first half of the year. So definitely I do want to go, but I'm realizing the events I used to attend prior to the pandemic, let's say, I'm not, they are not the events that work for my company any longer because a
Mm,
lot of things changed. So I am looking for new type of events.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
I do tend to go not necessarily for the classical one that will make sense. Definitely it's a marketing conference that I want to attend or things like that that I do want to join,
mm-hmm,
or the women in tech. So there are a couple of things that yes make sense and I want to be there. But I do find you get clients or get inspired when you are going to things that you don't normally attend because
mm-hmm,
they're also going to take you out of your comfort zone or they will actually teach you something that you don't know. And let's be honest, I'm not saying I'm the smartest or we are the smartest, but after 20 something years of doing something, you have quite a lot of knowledge. So you do
mm-hmm,
need to change the environment in order to learn new things or to get new influx of information or new way of thinking about things to just
mm-hmm.
see things differently, right? Because yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so
So for
much
sure.
there's there.
Yeah, I certainly did that. I moved to a new continent. So most of the events, I mean, none of the events I went to this year had I ever been to. And so that is a factor when I'm beginning to research and look for, you know, events for 2024 is, of course, I know there are a bunch of US events that I could certainly go to, but I'm also probably more so interested in attending events in Europe because of exactly what you said. It's you know new perspectives, new relationships, new companies, new content, all of these things, and it's my new home continent, really. So I'm that's definitely a factor. So there, when I look at the you know event opportunities for 2024. Yeah, I have a bunch in California, New York, and Austin, Texas, and you know South by is coming up. Um, That's interesting. There are so many, but then we're going to talk about prioritizing in a few minutes. But I think, um, what else did I want to say about that? Oh, I was curious. So, what category? So, if we kind of just jump ahead for a second, or unless you want to talk more about other specific conferences, do you want to? We could spend a few more minutes if there are specific conferences that you want to highlight or plug
So
or.
I think there are smaller events that you actually, when it comes to conferences and to events, I think you need to look, who are you targeting? What's the audience you want to target? And is the audience that you are targeting there? So that's one thing if you go for getting new clients and being visible. And then you have the other one, conferences that you attend to gather information, to grow. So those are for you in order to meet people, to get inspired and to see how can I improve my business and what am I doing. One doesn't exclude the other because you can still meet clients in either of them or get inspired. And there are events that I like to attend that have nothing to do with my audience or with uh, my area of expertise, but I just find them inspirational. Like, for example, TEDx. There's a conference that I do enjoy going just purely to be inspired and to meet people. And that's it. Like, I don't expect anything from that type of event. Um, so I think it kind of depends how you see it. And I do advise everyone to go to all these type of categories, not focus only on clients, for example, because I think you'll be narrow-minded. And as an entrepreneur, you need a bigger picture in order to be able to create. Does that make sense what
Mhm.
I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. So then to try to grab something granular from that. So in looking at, starting to research for events, what categories? Because I think, yeah, all the things that you just laid out, yeah, that's a part of it. I was going to get there in a few minutes. Just but it's all relative. I suppose you can do in any sequence, but you need to
Yeah.
know. Probably it makes sense to nail this down before we start looking into researching for events. But to be clear about exactly the things that you talked about. So I think you know what are you trying to? What's the purpose of attending events in general, and then specific events that you start to consider, right? So again, you can do this before or after you start finding events. But in any case, so I think of it in terms of, am I going to learn? Am I going to network? Is it to, well, obviously, if you're speaking at an event, you're there to speak, or is it to evaluate for, potential future speaking opportunities? Same thing with sponsorship. Are you there because you're sponsoring, or are you considering being a sponsor in the future? And then also, are you looking to build partnerships, right, or create partnerships? So those are the kind of five things that come to mind for me. I mean, I suppose you could add a sixth category, which is it's for inspiration or motivation, or it could be for community was related to that. So there are a bunch of different reasons or purposes
Mhm.
that we may decide to attend an event. So considering all of those things, or just acknowledging those things, and diving deeper in, categorically, what types, like what keywords are you using? What types of conferences, like subject matter, are you interested in for 2024? I know you mentioned a moment ago marketing and stuff, and also wanting to change it up. But what are some of the categories that you're looking for that are on your radar for this year?
Sustainability, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Ethical growth.
Mm.
So, or purpose oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and here actually, I had a chat with my team this week because until now we were focusing on entrepreneurs, but we realized, is it entrepreneurs or founders or CEOs? Because the moment you grow, you can still be a founder, you can still be an entrepreneur, but do you identify more as a CEO? So I do want to attend more. I'm not gonna say conferences because I think this will be more events where this
Mm.
type of people are joining just
Mm-hmm.
to chat. socialize, get to know each other, grow, just be curious. And that's we actually this year we're gonna have the second edition in real life of Base Conference. Actually, this will be the fifth edition of Base Conference, but because of the pandemic, we had to move online. But we do want to bring it in 2024 in real life again. And this is a question we are asking ourselves, and we are looking how to better place it in terms of audience. Because the people are the same, but the question is which word will resonate better with who they are. So depending on that,
But also,
that
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but so when you're saying, just as like a sidebar, but when you're talking about you said founder, CEO, or entrepreneur. So any of those, those are all can be overlapping but different roles. But
correct.
For the type of client you're looking for, would it be that role who would be hiring you? Because I think depending on the size company, sometimes it wouldn't necessarily be the CEO that would be hiring you.
Excuse me. Actually, we should be the CEO.
For where you're going as a CEO?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that may not be, so the CEO may not be the entrepreneur, because not all
founder.
CEOs are entrepreneurs, and it may not be the founder. Correct. Yeah.
Correct. So it also depends where you are in your journey, because usually at the beginning, the CEO is the founder, but that may change in time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then you talked about ethical growth, sustainability. Then we're talking about events where CEOs mingle.
Yeah.
You mentioned for me B Corps, which is definitely true, but also I'm looking at like regenerative economy and also renewables are really interesting. And I mentioned earlier, I've only been living in Europe for 3 years, so I'm trying to kind of learn as quickly as I can about the kind of the politics of sustainability here, and et cetera, and policy, et cetera. So that's the event I was saying in Brussels in February. So I'm looking to attend that so I can meet more people and try to learn more. What else? Leadership events are interesting to me. Innovation is interesting to me.
Oh yes, innovation is a good one.
Yeah, and then I love articles, conversations, podcasts. I love talking about like business operations. So I don't know that there's a whole bunch of conferences will necessarily, I mean, probably, I guess RevOps and whatnot there are. But anyway, so that's an area that I'm interested in. I'm not sure that it seems like it's more aligned with like workshops and that kind of thing, but that's a topic or a category that I don't yet have on my calendar for the year. And it's a topic that I'm interested in. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to attend an event for it. And that probably is going to lead into the online events or webinars and things that we already kind of talked about. But
and also we need to consider that not all the events are up and running or published at this point. So some of them, they won't happen.
The ones that I attended last year, the priority ones, none of them have their dates or registration pages open. Exactly. Some of them have a wait list. But anyhow, so how about sources for finding events? How do you go about this? So you have your ideas, you know who you want to be around, you know the type of vibe, you know the category, you know your purpose, all those things. So then where do you typically go to find events, or how have you found out about events previously?
So there are a couple of ways. Amsterdam, they have a calendar with all the business events. So that's a good resource to go. Of course, Eventbrite, you do have Meetup. And usually, I'm pretty sure you have the same, but you are registered or you're subscribed to different newsletters sent by the organizations that you are interested in, and they are organizing events. So just keep an eye on your inbox, basically, and then you'll receive them. Also, you could an advice would be to just look at the organization like startups, incubators and accelerators, because they do have regular events. So you can actually keep an eye on those and see what is
Mm-hmm.
happening, or subscribe to their newsletter so you receive
Mm-hmm.
that. But I Amsterdam is actually pretty good, and I'm gonna share with you the link now. So because I know we're gonna have it
Yeah.
in the
Show
description, so I
the
don't forget.
show notes. Yep.
Yes, they do a pretty good job. So of gathering all of this. So they are a good hub to have a clear overview of what is happening. I do know I'm actually submitting my online networking events there, and they do appear
Mm-hmm.
in the calendar. So definitely, if you want to start from somewhere, that's a good place to start.
So I
And
would add to
actually, a
that.
lot of
Those are.
people, apologies. Also, a lot of people are actually sharing events with me because we do act
Mm-hmm.
as a media. We are a media partner to a lot of organizations. So I have to admit, I'm in a good position because people come to me with the events, so I don't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
need to do research. So that's
Sure. Sure.
another way for me to find out and join or be part of some.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would add LinkedIn can be great for finding out about events,
Oh yes,
and
that's a
also
good one.
yeah, like membership groups. Um, and then it can also be like Google, right? Google can be a good
Yeah.
option too. Um, and then, thank you to algorithms and AI and the creepy people of the internet. Even Instagram pushes them out. It'll target quite well. So I'm getting targeted for different events there. Um, but I have, or maybe I'll tell you and then give you an opportunity to share one if you think of one. Any surprising sources or unexpected sources of events?
Hmm. Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'll share one and then
You
maybe this
share.
will
I
make you
have
think of
none in
something.
my.
All right. Okay. So this is me flexing my nerd status here, like proud nerd status. So I love public libraries. I actually wrote an article on public libraries. Anyway, so I love public libraries and it's a great place to look at the bulletin board because a lot of them
Mhm.
are hosting events. And so doing
Ah,
exactly that years ago, I found out about an event that was interesting to me. I went and I was, 50 years younger than everybody in the room, which is par for the course in my life. But I ended up meeting the speaker at the end and just thanking him. And we connected and just made a joke about how I was there once again, blending in. In any case, so we connected and exchanged business cards or something. And that has blossomed into so he's now my like best friend and the big brother that I never had. He's the one that invited me to to work on a book. So that's my book that I have is I wrote with him. So he's they're co-authors in that book. He also invited me to be a lecturer at Boston College. So I was a guest lecturer in his class for 6 years at BC. All kinds of things. And like I said, most of all, he's like the big brother I never had. So all because of this flyer on a bulletin board at a public library many years ago, like 2009 or 10, somewhere around there. So long time ago. So
I like
that's
that.
an yeah, off the beaten path source.
I must say, I haven't been in a library in ages. You just
Hmm.
inspired me. Maybe I should. Maybe
The
I
one
should
in
just
so
grab my
that's where we
laptop
should
and
meet.
go.
Let's meet at the library in Amsterdam, the big one there next to Nemo.
That sounds good. Actually, I have
Yeah, I
mine like
love it.
5 minutes walking distance from me as well.
Oh, yeah, I
But
love I
we
love
definitely need to
libraries.
meet there. I love that
Yeah,
library.
I love it.
So
Yeah.
beautiful.
So in terms of sources, check this out. You are responsible for 30% of the events that I went to last year. You know that?
I
Yep.
had no idea.
Yep,
So thank you
30%. Yeah.
to all the listeners.
So
Start following Spin Ideas. We do share good
yeah,
events.
this is it. Yeah, 30% of them I found out from you. So I wanted to
Okay.
let you know about that.
And they
So
weren't only ONS, just for you to be
no,
clear.
yeah, no, they were not actually. No, one of them is because I met somebody in one of the ONS meetings, events.
The online.
I
Yeah.
met somebody there. I met Ryan, and then Ryan did another event, so I attended that. And then he then invited me or comped me on a ticket for another event. So it's like full
The
circle
chain.
and all the things.
This
Yeah,
is
how it
what we are
goes.
trying to say for about partnerships and meeting people for so long. Like this is the best example. Don't dismiss
Mm-hmm.
anything. If you find a
Yep,
person that is interesting, go for that conversation. You have no clue what will get come out of it.
absolutely. Absolutely. So the last section I had in my notes is just, a couple of tips, or at least the way I think about how to prepare for events and how to maximize the event opportunity, right? So the way I think about it, and this is what I do for myself, full disclosure, like needs improvement, but this is the concept. But this is what we do with clients. So I'm guilty of doing this better consistently with clients and not as consistently with myself. So that's on my to-do
Classical
list.
story.
Yeah, the cobbler story. So anyway, so with events, I think it's for me, it feels like this can be Captain Obvious, but just from doing this for so many years, I think a lot of us know these things, but it's really not about what we know, it's about what we do. And so
Yeah.
with events, it's not just about the actual event, it's about the pre, the during, and the post. So on the pre, the kind of preparation for the event, it's things like, does the event have a hashtag? Does it have a some type of a community attached to it? Does the event publish the registration pay, like
Yeah.
the what's the word I want to say, the
List
registries, registrants.
registrants.
Does it
Yeah.
a list
Or
of
do
people
they
who have
have an
registered?
application where you can already start seeing who's attending and set up meetings with them? A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
the big ones
And
actually have that.
absolutely. So I did this years ago for an event that I was planning to attend, and then I wasn't able to. But because the event had published this list or had made it available when I registered, I went through and sent some messages to some people and said I really was looking forward to this event. I couldn't make it, any highlights. And one of those people became a really good friend of mine, and we've done lots of business together over the years as well. So another, like, kind of off the radar, like overlooked opportunity source, is the events that publish, or you could meet people through, like I said, through the communities or hashtags, or they have a
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn group or whatever it is. So a lot of the pre stuff, just publishing that you're attending such and such event, that can be
Yeah,
helpful too. So that's the
exactly.
pre. um, During, obviously, most people know what to do during an event. You have your plan, you know who you want to meet or what sessions you want to go to. You take some photos, you take some notes. The one that I feel like probably a lot of people know of, but in the events that I've been to this past year, not everybody was kind of as automatic about. And it's not, certainly other people may have different ways to do this, but it's a really convenient way to, when you meet somebody, to just connect on LinkedIn or something, so
Mm-hmm.
you can have a follow-up discussion later, because it's really hard to have full length conversations at an event because there's
It's
so many
actually
things going
impossible.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So doing that is a great thing. And then of course, when you're connecting with these people on LinkedIn, for example, to just send a quick message and just tell them, yeah, it was great to meet you at insert name of event, because then it's there for you to remember as well. Because at the time you think, oh, you won't forget, but you'll forget
Nah,
in
you're gonna
30
forget.
days or a year or
You're gonna
whatever it
forget
is.
in 1 week, let's be honest.
Yeah, it definitely happens.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think one other piece there is just to point out, because also just a observation from events that I've attended this past year, and in general, is to just balancing, like, again, in terms of the mental preparedness for being at the actual event, is to kind of balance that idea of like seize the opportunity with also humility, right? So when there's like
Mm.
speakers that you want to meet, you want to seize the opportunity, you want to get a photo with them or chat with them or whatever, to just also be cognizant of the humility side, and that this is a human being, and if they're in line at the bathroom, or if they're in the bathroom, or if they're,
Just
whatever it
let them
is.
be.
Sometimes it's just let them be. And so I often will say that. I'll say, listen, you're probably spent. You've been, picked apart by everybody. You're, a hot topic at the moment. I'd love to have a follow up with you. What's the best way for me to reach out? Is it email or is LinkedIn better? And just say something like that. And they usually really appreciate that. And that sets the table for a future conversation that they're
Yeah.
expecting. So anyway, and then the last category is post. And this is the one most people fall down on, because it is kind of, you can chalk it up to follow up, and most people don't do a whole lot of follow up. So the first thing is making sure that the new contacts, the new relationships, or the new relationship seeds that were planted, that they're added to your CRM, or whatever tool you use to manage your relationships. And then, like, I recommend including like what the event was, maybe the month or year, and where it was, possibly, because again, over time you forget, and it's helpful. And then
I will
also,
add something to this.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I
Yeah,
will add
no, go ahead.
something, like what you said makes sense, but what I'm trying to do always to remember something personal from the discussion. Be that we have dogs and we discussed about
Yeah.
dogs, or was a particular session that we liked, or a specific speaker, or usually you connect with that person with on a specific level. You have an
Yep.
element, and if you can write it down and remember and include it, that will make it much more personal, and the chances to have a proper follow-up afterwards
Yes.
are
And that
higher.
helps them to remember you as well.
And you to
Yeah.
remember them as well. So it's actually
Yeah.
both ways.
Works both ways. Yeah. The last ones I had, just two last ones. So one would be to do like a post-mortem after the event, because we forget and move on. So after the event, just think, were your expectations met? Was it a high value event? Was it not? Did it boost your energy? Did it give you motivation? What was the result of the event? Did you make a bunch of new contacts? Like, what was it that happened?
Yeah.
So just jotting that down, like having a simple spreadsheet or some place to record just little tidbits after the event is great. And that can be useful for writing blog posts and all other stuff, which is my last point, which is to write and ultimately publish a blurb, as I call it. It's very professional language, a blurb. At a minimum, just, I attended this a such and such event. It might be a social media post at a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And here are my takeaways. Here's who I met. Here's
Yeah.
what I liked. Just something, a recap. It could be a blog post, could be a newsletter, it could be whatever, a podcast episode. But I think, that's those last two pieces most people don't do. They don't do the post-mortem, and
Some
they don't
do it, but
write
not
anything.
properly. What I will
Yep.
add to this one is when you do that post-mortem, make sure you tag the people you met or you spoke with, or they were you really connected during the conference. Make sure you are
Mm-hmm.
tagging the conference using the hashtags as well, and you follow
Mm-hmm.
up. And
Mm-hmm.
remember, actually, LinkedIn is the highest moment. You'll not necessarily see it when you're posting. You're going to see it a couple of days later, up to 1 week. So you'll be surprised, like, how the post will still be seen and people will respond to it later on.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be disappointed if you don't see the reaction immediately. And I go back to the data and look, and you'll see. Actually, the conference we attended was exactly the same, very similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really works. Also for events, actually, you mentioned the LinkedIn events. I do see we start promoting the event, our online networking with the spin differently. And what we noticed, actually, we have more and more new people just because they saw someone from their network responding to our post.
Yep.
So
that's what happens.
Very important.
Absolutely.
That's a very good piece of advice.
Absolutely. So I think that's quite a bit. I think we covered a lot of ground about events.
And I think, for a topic that should have been a short one, again, we have a very long episode.
Yeah. So I think that's all I have on this topic. So I'm ready to wrap.
Actually, very well. I feel like this was your episode, and I was just here to add company, actually.
Listen,
to make sure we go to Sasa thing.
Yeah, I know. I always have a kind of notes or agendas for all of my meetings to help me, because remember what I wanted to talk about, put a place to put ideas and whatnot. So that's what I do for our podcast too. So hopefully it was helpful, and hopefully there was at least something that people heard today that is relevant to their business or to their life and what have you. But for now, that's all I have. So we'll see if we can wrap up episode 24 in 2024. 24 and 24.
24. And
yeah, halfway to
for
48.
the listeners, yes, if you have an event hosting or you know about an event that could be interesting, just share it with us, and maybe we can meet there and have a coffee.
Yeah, if it's in person in Amsterdam. Yes. All right, that's it. We're done.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, cheers.
See you next time.
Ciao.